everybody. The No-Huddle Show here. Eliot, Shorr-Parks, along with Matt Lombardo. We are sitting at Radio Row, at Super Bowl 52, at the Mall of America in Minnesota. And, Matt, we're finally here. The Eagles are here. It's Super Bowl week.
It really is. And we landed in Minneapolis yesterday. The Eagles arrived in Minneapolis yesterday. The snow flurries were falling. It was frigid outside. Yeah. The Eagles team bus had a little bit of a hiccup getting to the hotel. But it really feels, now that we're here at Radio Row and people are starting to get into town, it feels like it's finally sinking in that this is the Super Bowl. And, of course, it's really going to get underway in earnest tonight with Media Night. The players were out and about last night. We'll talk about all that. But it's here, and the Eagles have a chance to win the Vince Lombardi Trophy for the first time in franchise history on Sunday, but a lot of craziness between now and then.
And to me, one of the funniest things still is, as we walk around, seeing Nick Foles on Super Bowl banners.
I know.
Along with Tom Brady. Yeah. I mean, you know, like, you can just tell they were so ready to promote Carson Wentz, and then you walk around. I mean, first of all, the Mall of America is absolutely huge. Yep. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but there's posters everywhere. There's, all types of things with Foles right next to Brady. It's just ridiculous to see. But also, I mean, in the past Super Bowls I've covered, you walk around and you see the player posters and you see stuff like that. But it's still weird seeing Eagles on them. Nelson Aguilar, a guy that they wanted cut last year, is now being promoted in the Super Bowl. LeGarrette Blount, Fletcher Cox, Zach Ertz. I mean, Eagles green is absolutely everywhere right now in Minnesota.
Yeah, and I think that the guys that are on the posters, and, while they're unexpected, and if Wentz doesn't shred his knee against the Rams back in Week 14, it's a completely different promo package. But these are guys that could become household names this week. I mean, you talk about Zach Ertz, first year making the Pro Bowl, had a career year, and a lot of that with Carson Wentz at quarterback. But he's really developed a chemistry with Nick Foles over the last 3 games, particularly the 2 playoff games. We could see him break out on Sunday night. Fletcher Cox, I mean, Tom Brady talks all the time about A-gap pressure and how much pressure up the middle disrupts him in the pocket and makes him feel uncomfortable. Cox is the best guy to do that. And Blount was here a year ago with the Patriots, and Aguilar, we've talked about it ever since the Falcons game, right? Get this man the ball in his hands in space. We saw what he did against Atlanta. There's no reason he can't do it again against the Patriots.
So obviously a lot to talk about today, a lot we want to relay to you guys so you can really feel like you're here. But it is Monday, so even though we'll be doing our podcast all week, and normally do fan stuff on Tuesday or Friday, but I think we've been getting so many reviews recently. Let's read one or two.
Oh, you're calling an audible.
Yeah, we're calling an audible here. This isn't even on the rundown. And here's why. 479, Matt. We're at 479. We're only 21 away from reaching our goal of 500. So if you want, you can read one first. Actually, I'll go first because I like this one a lot. Hours on Hours by Dominican B-Doc. Hours on hours of professional entertainment. I refresh my podcast every morning, hoping to see you guys release a new episode. You guys bring genuine joy to my life. I hope the review helps. #Fly Eagles Fly. #BirdGang. So appreciate that review. And Hours on Hours, we're going to have plenty of content for you guys this week. We're going to be doing a show every single day of the week here at Radio Row. And Radio Row is a little slow right now. It's it's about 9 or 10 a.m. here in Minnesota. So not too many celebrities, not too many athletes. But as the week picks up, that's absolutely going to pick up as well. And we'll see way more people. But
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think that when we, talk about this week, we're going to have podcasts coming at you every single day, sometimes even multiple times a day if we can sprinkle in some surprise interviews and get some marquee guests on here. So if there's ever a time to subscribe, if there's ever a time to, hook up on iTunes or YouTube or SoundCloud or Stitcher or anywhere you listen, this is the time to do it.
I think I just want to say real quick, you should know Matt is frantically swiping on his brand new iPhone X here, trying to find a review. So
there was one that stuck out
it is the audible, but I know he's excited to be using that X.
There was one that stuck out with me when I was reading the reviews on the flight yesterday. I was trying to find it, but we'll get to that one tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll read a review every day.
Yeah, there we go. We'll go. Great insight, 5 stars from Josh Boone. He says, "Hey, Eliot and Matt, I just listened to your Rasul Douglas interview. Nice job by you, Eliot. And I'm super excited to get to listen to the new pod every day on Radio Row with player updates from Rasul. Looking forward to the guest that y'all are going to be able to find. Let's go win the Super Bowl." So thank you for that. And by tomorrow, I will have picked out my 2 or 3 favorite reviews, and we will throw out some love and get some helmet
And we
stickers
always
tomorrow.
like to talk about the reviews here on the podcast, but this week especially, if you have something you want to say about the game or anything like that, a question you have about Minnesota, leave it in a review. Throw us those 5 stars, and we'll answer them from here on out for the rest of the week. So
here was the one that I wanted to mention. if you don't mind me throwing one more.
Go for it.
Appreciate the insight. Greatly appreciate the insight on the Eagles. I'm a Marine stationed in Okinawa, Japan, and wished I found this podcast sooner rather than later. I wake up to it, download it, and listen to it on my way to work and at work during the day. Disagree with some of the things you guys say, but nonetheless, still good insight and information. Keep it up, gentlemen. Let's go Eagles. So thank you to Do-Sell. Thank you for your service, and thank you for listening to the program.
All right, that was a great review. So, okay, let's talk about yesterday.
Yep.
So you took off a little earlier than me. You got into Minnesota. What'd you get, in around 12?
Yeah, I landed around 12 o'clock, and I remember stepping out of the airport, waiting for my Uber to get to the media hotel. And it hits you right in the face.
It's funny, you read about it and you hear about it. And when I found out I was going to the Super Bowl, I was looking at that Minnesota weather every day. And you see how cold it's going to be, but not until you feel it do you realize how absolutely frigid it is here in Minnesota. But the plane ride yesterday, I don't know if this was the case on your flight, but a real who's who of media. I mean, it's funny, like you always read online about how the fans are kind of bonding together over this team. And that's something that sometimes we can't really partake in because we're covering the team. We're not fans anymore. But it is exciting to see all these media members traveling. I mean, Pat Gallen was on mine, Sal Powell, Ron Jaworski, a lot of the Fox 29 people.
Yep.
So really, I mean, Philly media dominates everywhere we go. But especially in the Super Bowl, you can tell already. There's probably, what do you think, 50, 60, 70 media members here?
Well, the media horde is strong coming from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that I somehow found my way onto the NBC Sports Philadelphia chartered flight because their entire crew was here.
You weren't riding the car with D-Gun?
I was not in the car with D-Gun and Barrett Brooks. I gave John Clark a fist bump while I was in the Delta Comfort section, and he was wandering back to his
nice
seat back there.
Subtle brag there.
Little humble brag, right? Just rack up those miles. But, yeah, I mean, you're right, Eliot. Everywhere you look, the Philadelphia media is making their presence known. And I got to give a little bit of a helmet sticker to the Eagles fans. I mean, this is not your ideal Super Bowl host city, right? You've covered Super Bowls in San Francisco.
Arizona.
My first Super Bowl last year was in Houston, and it was 75, 80 degrees every day in February. Yeah. This is Minneapolis, Minnesota, where the one thing to do is shop at the Mall of America and try not to get frostbite on every piece of uncovered, skin. And there were 50 Eagles fans waiting outside the team hotel singing Fly, Eagles, Fly and doing the Eagles chant yesterday. So, I mean, I talked about it yesterday on our video, post. You go to L.A. and the Eagles turn those two games into home games. You go on the road every year at Carolina. They turn that into not necessarily a home game, but they made their presence felt. And the Super Bowl, it's a lot tougher to do. But I think Eagles fans have been early arrivals, and I think that they're really going to have an impact on this game, and it might even turn out to be, if not a 50-50 crowd, maybe a slightly Eagles favorite crowd in there on Sunday night.
And yesterday I tweeted out, oh, man, there's a lot of Eagles fans here already, and the game's a week away, and people are like, oh, well, they just live there. But I don't care where we were at yesterday. We were at the airport. We were in the mall. We were walking around. Fans have already, dinner. Fans have already arrived here in Minnesota. They're ready to spend the week out here, and there's going to be a lot to do. I mean, the Mall of America, let's talk about it now since we're sitting in here. If you've never been to the Mall of America, I'm not saying it's like a sight to see, like a wonder of the world, because it's still a mall at the end of the day. But, man, this thing is huge. Like, it puts King of Prussia Mall, Willow Grove Mall, like all those malls to absolute shame. There's literally an amusement park in the middle of it.
I'm staring at a roller coaster and a spinning Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles ride. Okay, so that tells you everything you need to know. Maybe we'll, strap this iPhone X onto my hat, and I'll go on the roller coaster.
I was going to say, are you a roller coaster guy? I'm not a roller coasters. I don't do them.
Yeah, so looking forward to trying that out. More coffee places than you can shake a stick at, which makes me really happy. We've got a Shake Shack behind us. I mean, this is it's a pretty cool mall. And, do we wish that we were in a warmer climate with a beach? Sure, but we're not going to be able to get out and about all that much this week. And if, for us and for fans coming out and staying in the area, it is kind of cool to have so many great restaurant and shopping areas within walking distance.
To me, one of the craziest things was yesterday. So we get here. Everything is in the mall. Like, both the teams are staying in the mall at the hotels at opposite ends. The media center's here, the credential place, all that stuff. So we get here, and we have to – our Uber drops us off at one side of the mall. In order to find the credential center, it literally ended up being on the other side of it. But they have little iPads throughout the thing. Or not iPads, but they're like
kiosks.
Kiosks with touchscreens. And they literally give you GPS directions on the quickest way to walk around the mall by the foot, and it estimates how many minutes. I mean, we were talking about 15, 20-minute walks to get to the other side of the mall.
I remember the last time that I was in Minnesota for work back in college, I fell in love with Caribou Coffee, of all things.
All right.
And there was one in the mall, and I went up to a kiosk today, Eliot, it told me that I would arrive at the Caribou Coffee in 2 minutes and 37 seconds. Now, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool that it will map out, tell you where you're going, how much time to allocate, and we got what we needed, but it certainly is something you don't see in every mall across America.
So another unique thing about Minnesota is in the past Super Bowls, and you saw it last year in Houston, where the teams stay is normally pretty far apart. You don't see them staying very close together. They practice at different places. These two teams are staying, on literal opposite sides of the mall. And the mall is big, but you're still talking, relatively close, less than a mile apart.
Yep.
The Eagles are at the Radisson Blu on one side. The Patriots, who arrived today on Monday, they're at the JW Marriott on the other end. I thought that's kind of interesting. Like, to have them that close, I was just surprised that's how you went. But the thing is, there's really not much out here. The hotels we're staying at are, there's not exactly a ton of five-star hotels out here. There's not places for them to go, and you don't want to stay downtown. So
right. I'm a little surprised they didn't stay downtown and didn't have the media staying downtown, because that's where a lot of your nicer hotels and things are. But I guess because of the fact that they wanted to showcase the Mall of America and use this space as kind of the headquarters for all of the team availabilities and Radio Row, I guess they kept it close. But even last year in Houston, Eliot, we had to bus to get to the Falcons headquarters. We had to take a bus to get to where the Patriots were staying. Here, the Eagles could wander into the amusement park and be waiting in line next to Rob Gronkowski to ride that roller coaster.
Right. I'll be interested to see if they run into each other. And so yesterday, the Eagles arrive. We were in the mall for a little bit, and then the Eagles arrived from, what would you say, 3 o'clock around here? 3 o'clock Minnesota time?
Yeah, the Eagles landed probably around 3:15, 3:30 yesterday, and they checked right into their hotel at the Radisson Blu. And it's funny, you and I were kind of staking it out to get video of the buses arriving and the players arriving, and it really didn't take long to see guys kind of trickle out and, get on with their night. And a really funny, random story, they were getting in Ubers.
Well,
Ubers
first,
where they wanted to go.
Should we talk about the bus fiasco?
We should talk about the bus fiasco.
Yes. So if you're looking for it's not a good omen. If you're looking at how things might work out here in Minnesota for the Eagles. So we're standing, first of all, there's military trucks out there.
Yes.
Guards with automatic assault rifles. We were going to try to get in the hotel lobby to try to talk to players. They wouldn't let us anywhere close to that.
The assault rifle kind of turned me off to that idea pretty quick.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. So we're waiting there for the players, and the buses kind of have to go around this sharp turn to get to the front door of the hotel. And the reason it was so sharp is because they have all these military things there. Yep. So the buses come here. There's fans lined up, media members are waiting. They try to make this turn, and it just they can't do it.
Couldn't do it.
So the entire team is waiting there on the bus. The guy had to reverse and bring it back 3 or 4 times. Yeah. They had to come out, try to move the cement things. They couldn't do that. Yep. They had to move some cones.
And all of a sudden, some of the buses that were in line behind the lead bus, they got impatient, went around, and then went right in.
Right.
But it was just funny to see the Eagles buses get stuck. Now, I don't know if that's Bill Belichick strategically, ordering how these temporary barricades are set up.
We got Brady out there putting the cement blockers there.
I don't know if it's a Viking fan who was driving the bus who figured, you know what, I'll show them. I'll drive them right into this barricade.
Well, remember they said that prior coming, too. They're in an Uber or a bus driver. They're going to start messing with Eagles fans and all that. So this was their golden opportunity.
I don't know about you, but every Uber that I've gotten in,
I know, you were quizzing the guy yesterday.
Yeah, and I've stressed, listen, we're reporters. We don't care who wins or loses. We're not fans. Don't drop us off in the sticks, because that's the last thing we need is to get dropped off in, the boondocks of Minnesota. But, shortly after the players checked in, after they finally got off the buses, it was wild. These guys were just piling into Ubers to go downtown. No car service, no shuttle buses, nothing like that. It was, hey, every man for themselves. Whatever you're doing tonight, hop in the Uber and go.
And not just any player. So the players get off the bus, and they pretty much go right into the hotel. They check in, they get changed, and then slowly they start to trickle out. Didn't talk to any of the media members as of now. A little later on in the night at the mall, a few of them talked. But we see Carson Wentz, Torrey Smith, Nelson Aguilar, and Alshon Jeffrey walk out. First of all, on a more serious football note, Wentz is walking a lot better.
Yep, no cane. Without the cane.
Pardon me. Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, so no cane for Carson Wentz. And not only just that, even I think he's walking better than he was a few days ago. I mean, we saw video of him walking off the plane carrying his bags. And you can notice a limp when he walks, but it's still not anything terrible. So definitely a noticeable improvement for him. But so they walk to the corner of the hotel. First of all, it's sunny outside, but it's snowing, and it's freezing cold. So I guess maybe a typical Minnesota day. Wentz and them were all sitting there, and we see them, and they're clearly waiting for an Uber because they're looking on their phone. And this busted up, old, run down
Toyota minivan.
Yeah, Aqua minivan pulls up. and Wentz, Alshon, Torrey Smith, and Aguilar get in it. I'm thinking like, all right, that's your franchise guy, number one. Number two, he just had surgery.
Number one wide receiver.
Yeah, number one wide receiver. Your best wide receiver at Nelson. And got to get that in there. Got to get that in there. And then your guy that just had your franchise guy who just had surgery, piling into an Uber of all things. And then so they get in and they pull off, and based off their Instagram posts, it looks like they went to get dinner somewhere. But I was just really surprised Eagles got the guys out here riding Ubers. I mean, get these guys a car service or something.
Call a Lincoln Town Car. Get it, charter some shuttle buses to be at your disposal the entire week. Do what you have to do.
Yeah.
But you have to. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle this the entire week because, like we talked about, they're attached to the Mall of America. The Patriots are attached to the Mall of America. There's a lot to do in here. There are a lot of restaurants. There are a lot of things that you can do. I'd be real interested to see if they cross paths with each other and how that plays out.
Yeah.
Because it is unique.
And the one thing I think there's a reason that could happen, and I don't know if you agree with this, but a lot of freedom Doug seems to be giving his players. So they get here yesterday. They're basically allowed to go and do whatever they want. And then even last night, me and you were out with Dan Duggan, our colleague, and we see a few players out. Nothing crazy. I mean, we're just literally at the Outback. But, like Doug's basically allowing these guys to go out, do what they want. And I'm not surprised by that in some ways because Doug's always been a guy that's like, all right, you guys be yourself. He stresses them to be themselves and have personality, give them freedom. Yep. But I don't know, man. This week at the Super Bowl, I don't know if you rein it back in a little bit.
I think that as the week goes on, that'll happen. But it was Sunday night. The Patriots don't even get into town until 3 o'clock this afternoon.
Right.
So I think that after you win the NFC Championship game, and, this could be a once-in-a-career, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for these guys, and it's not ideal. They're not going to South Beach. They're not going to San Diego. They're not, roaming the French
And I think
border.
that's a blessing in disguise for the Eagles because the Patriots are a team that they've been here before. Yep. I mean, nothing's going to surprise them. They're not going to come here and want to see the scenes. The Eagles, had it been in Miami, had it been, in New Orleans, L.A., you might have seen a little bit more of that. But outside of going to the mall, there's not a lot of trouble you can get in, short of shoplifting.
Right. I guess my point is that it's the first night here. Yeah. Media night is really going to kick off on Monday night. And then it's down to, the week of preparing. And I think that you got to kind of let these guys cut loose for a night or two before you rein it back in. I mean, think back to 1980, and Dick Vermeil had like an 11 p.m. curfew and told his guys not to go out, and they got shellacked by the Raiders. They were flat, they were, run down, they were mentally drained. And the Eagles are a veteran group. They have 7 guys who have won Super Bowl rings. A lot of guys have gone this far before, so they know how to handle their business. But I think the first night here, you got to let them do their thing.
Yeah, and I think, too, and one of the nice things now, not to sound like an old guy, but one of the nice things about social media now is you can really see what the players are up to and who they're hanging out with. And one thing I noticed yesterday was, man, these position groups really are tight together. Yep. You had the running backs walking around together, Corey Clement, Kenyon Bonner, Wendell Smallwood. They went to buy an Xbox, so I guess they'll be spending plenty of time in their room.
I guess you don't have to worry about them getting into trouble with the Maxim party, right?
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't look like they'll be doing too much. But it looks like they have roommates, too. Wendell Smallwood is staying with Corey Clement, so they bought an Xbox. And then you saw the receivers walking around together. The defensive backs were by the roller coaster, marveling at Jalen Mills, Ronald Darby, Patrick Robinson, Malcolm Jenkins. They were all together walking around. And then the receivers did the escape the room here.
Have you ever done one of those?
I have not.
I have not either, and I didn't realize there was one here. And we have enough people in Steve Politti and Dan Duggan and yourself and me. I don't know if you want
me on your team.
I probably don't.
Yeah.
I think if Politti and I teamed up, or Duggan and I teamed up, I think that we would dominate it. I think it's a good time to do it.
So who do you think on the Eagles would
Matt
be?
Collins.
Who's your guy you want on your team? Matt Collins. Among just the receivers?
Just the receivers, because the kid went to North Carolina. He's a bright guy.
Yeah.
North Carolina's a really a good school, comparatively speaking to where some of these other receivers went.
Right. Nice little shot there at South Carolina. And
USC.
Yeah.
But yes. No, I think that, I'd probably want Matt Collins on my team out of the wide receivers, and maybe Torrey Smith.
I'm thinking definitely not Alshon, so another anti-Alshon take there by me. But he's very,
shocking.
He's very, soft-spoken. I don't know if he's who I want in my corner. Aguilar, I'm not so sure. I think I would come down to Torrey Smith, probably who I would want to go with. Very bright guy, veteran guy leader, so I'm thinking that's who I'd want on my team in the escape the room. But so they did that, and then last night seemed like it was a pretty quiet night for the Eagles. They didn't have anything on their schedule. The guys went, got dinner, probably just hung out in the hotel room. Monday is when it starts a little bit for them. Doug Peterson's going to hold a meeting with the players today. Just kind of remind them about what the week's going to be about, putting out the clutter, that type of thing. Then after that, they just have time to kill before media night, which is going to be an absolute zoo tonight. Oh,
absolutely. And last year was my first experience with media night, my first Super Bowl that I covered. And I remember I was staying with family last year. And after I got, back to my cousin's house and I was, sitting around with her and her husband, they asked me how it went because they watched on TV. And I said, guys, this is like Comic-Con for football.
It's
insane. Have reporters from, entertainment outlets dressed up. You had J.B. Smoove from Curb Your Enthusiasm there. Kel from Keenan and Kel.
From Good Burger.
Good Burger, welcome to Good Burger.
Right.
And then you had all the foreign language reporters there asking you, the players, to say things in different languages and getting it on tape. So it's a zoo. It's a complete zoo. But I think Eagles fans watching it tonight, it's a chance for the players to kind of show their personality. And I think there might be some guys who, once we get into media night, you and I are around these guys every day, right?
Yeah.
There are players that we have relationships with and we know pretty well. I think that, throughout media night, this is the time for some of these guys to really become household names during the media night facilities.
All right, so with media night starting tonight, let's kind of go through a run-through of what these guys will be like. So as you said, we know these guys well, but this is going to be the world's chance to meet the Eagles.
Absolutely.
Who's going to be a star tonight that is not a star now? A guy that's really going to own it. I have two clear.
Two.
Okay, all right, you go first.
All right, should we go 1-1?
Yeah. I hope you don't take mine first.
I'm going to go with Chris Long.
Okay, perfect.
Because I think that there's a chance, and everybody knows Chris Long, right? He donated his entire salary to charity this year. Got a shout-out on Twitter from President Obama.
Yep.
But I think there's a chance he shows up in the dog mask. And if he rolls in with the dog mask on and he does the interview in the dog mask, well, everybody in Philadelphia has fallen in love with him. Everybody in New England knows him.
Right.
I think there's a good chance for Chris Long to showcase himself on the national stage and maybe even parlay his football career into a future in television and father's footsteps.
The nice thing about Chris Long is he can talk about anything.
Yep.
I mean, maybe one of the brightest guys on the team.
Yep.
Unafraid to talk about anything,
Absolutely.
too. He'll answer all the questions. He's able to have fun with things.
Yep.
So he's kind of perfect for this. But my guy that I think right now is not a household name that people will know after tonight is Brandon Graham. A guy that is one of the best defensive ends in the league already. Great against the run, but has never really become like a premier name when it comes to defensive ends. But we deal with him every day. We see it. This
nicest guy in the locker room, bar none.
Right. And not only that, he's willing to have fun. He likes to have fun. He'll joke back with the reporters. If someone asks him to dance, he might get up and do that. He'll put masks on. And he's also very smart. But what other thing that'll help him out is he's good at not rocking the boat.
Yep.
He talks a lot, but he doesn't rock the boat. He won't say anything
Michigan
about the
boy,
Patriots.
Big Ten.
Yeah, that's right, Penn State. But, so I think he'll be very good tonight.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this. Who's one guy that you think is going to put his foot in his mouth? Is going to say something that's like, Doug's talking to him about it the next morning. We're like, all right, here it is. This is the guy. I think this is clear-cut number one.
It's going to drive the bus for the entire week.
Yep.
I hate answering things like this, but I think it could be Fletcher Cox.
Oh, nice. That's not mine. I
just think that Fletcher is another guy who tells it like it is. He's not afraid to casually drop a swear word in there if he's unprepared. And he goes on and says for this whole diatribe about how he's never watched a Super Bowl last week.
Yeah.
And then I know Dan Levy from William Penn Sports goes in and he found 15 tweets from the Super Bowls in the past that Fletcher Cox had watched. So I think Fletcher Cox has a chance to put his foot in his mouth and maybe say something that could drive the narrative.
Also, when he was doing his Super Bowl press conference last week, the lights were bright and he was sweating profusely. They had to turn it off.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he was actually hot or if he just couldn't handle the pressure, but I think if he's on a podium tonight, it's going to be really interesting to see. But to me, my guy's Lane Johnson.
Yeah.
A guy that literally doesn't know how to be anything but honest.
Right.
Says everything that's on his mind.
Texas boy,
loves to curse.
Yeah.
Like he'll have some sayings he'll drop, and he's not afraid to talk. I mean,
he might throw some beer, he might
bring a Bud Light to the stage, right?
Yeah.
But also, before the season, he said they were going to go down to Washington and kick the Redskins' ass. He's not afraid to make predictions. I think
which is great.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that as far as like a locker room leader, that's what you want. And I wrote all year that I thought he was the best offensive tackle in football. And I think that, if you read Zach Ertz's story on the Players Tribune, he came out and said that, it was Lane Johnson and Chris Long who they were sitting at dinner, and Zach Ertz said, quote, Lane Johnson sitting there with a shit-eating grin on his face, and he couldn't figure out why. And they said, we bought these dog masks. And they're not like funny, cute underdog masks.
Right.
They're creepy German Shepherd masks. So that was a funny moment that I think has become a rallying cry for this team, for this playoff run. And Lane and Chris Long were the two guys that brought that into being.
So another thing tonight is going to be that the players will walk out and they'll kind of just be wandering around, but they're going to be podiums. So there'll probably be 8 or 9 podiums. My guess on who the podium guys are, it's going to be Foles, obviously, because he's the quarterback. And the thing about Foles is he's going to bore America to death. He's a good-natured guy, very nice guy, but he's just not someone that's going to own a stage like this.
Right.
Doug Peterson, I think he's someone America could fall in love with tonight.
I agree.
Because he's going to go after Bill Belichick, and after Bill Belichick means that he's really, Bill's going to be who he is. He's going to be rude. He's going to be short. And media members will eat it up, which to me makes no sense because when other guys are rude, it's like, how's he doing this? Bill does it.
Because he wins.
Right, because he wins.
Has 5
right.
Super Bowl rings as a head coach,
right.
6 in total. The other thing is, I've written about this, and I'll be writing about it throughout the week. Eliot, I think that Doug Peterson is a worthy adversary of Bill Belichick, and it's not just from a personality standpoint that people are going to fall in love with when they hear him speak throughout the Super Bowl week, but you just look at his trademark aggressiveness. No coach in the NFL went for it on 4th down more than Doug Peterson did. You're up 24-7 in the third quarter on 1st down in the NFC title game, and you call a flea flicker for the first time.
Right.
And the NFL fans and sports fans in America in general, they love finding a villain, and they love finding the underdog who's going to take that villain down. Yep. Doug Peterson's perfectly equipped to do it. And
he's good at the podium now.
Yep, and the Eagles and Doug Peterson are perfectly built, not just for this coming Sunday in the Super Bowl, but to go zooming past the Patriots in a changing of the guard in the NFL and become the next great dynasty. And it could start very well tonight in the eyes of the public with how Doug Peterson does on media night.
We talked about how there's a lot of Eagles fans here already, and maybe it's just because it's early in the week, but I honestly don't think I've seen one Patriots fan here since I got in here. And again, they've been to, this will be their 8th Super Bowl. They've been to, cities that are far more exciting to go to than Minnesota. But I just wonder if, that's just how it's going to be, if they're going to get here Saturday and go. But as of now, I think that you're really going to see the Eagles be the team everyone roots for, especially after tonight. They're definitely going to be the home team here, in my opinion. So what are some questions you want to ask the players tonight at media night? Because we're going to get a lot of guys. We're going to get all the players. We're going to get all the coaches. Howie could talk. Jeffrey Lurie could talk. Joe Douglas could talk. There's going to be a lot of people. What are some main things you want answered heading into tonight?
I just want to know what this experience has been like for them. I mean, you talk about growing up playing Pop Warner football or, playing high school football, college football, and here you are in the Super Bowl. What has this ride been like? Has it sunk in yet? First impressions in Minnesota. Who was the best at the escape room? Sort of things. If you could say one thing to Tom Brady, if you're a defensive player, in terms of talking trash, what's your tactic? What are you going to say? Those are the sort of off-the-wall things that I think would be fun to find out tonight at media night.
Yeah, to me, I think the main thing is going to be Howie and Joe. People we don't get very often. Howie's been named Executive of the Year.
I can't give away my state secrets on the features I'll be working on. We can't give that.
You got to check NJ.com for that.
There's 500 media people here.
That's right. But we'll get Joe Douglas, a guy that really never talks. I'm excited to talk to him. But, all right, so we're going to have media night tonight, and then the week really kicks off. But before we get into talking about the game, we're lucky enough to have on Pete Prisco of CBS Sports. He was walking around Radio Row. We grabbed him, said he'd be happy to talk about Eagles, talk about the Patriots, talk about what this team's really been through. With Doug Peterson, Howie Roseman. So let's bring on Pete, and we're going to play the interview for you. Really think it was interesting. So here's Pete Prisco, CBS Sports. Pete, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. So the first question we had for you was just, I know in Philadelphia we're still stunned the Eagles are here. You see Nick Foles on the banner with Tom Brady. How surprised are you that the Eagles were able to overcome the loss of Wentz and make it to the Super Bowl?
Astounded. I didn't think they'd be able to do it. I really didn't. I give a lot of credit to Doug Peterson. He did a great job against Atlanta scheming those RPO plays, kind of got Foles into a rhythm, made the throws easy on him, and you could see him gain confidence. And then last week I thought he surprised the heck out of the Vikings by throwing down the field, kind of ambushed them a little bit. So I'm astounded they're here, but kudos to the coaching staff.
Yeah, and I think that Doug Peterson, Pete, has rightfully gotten a lot of the credit for how he was able to put together a scheme around Nick Foles, and the aggressiveness was certainly there last week against Minnesota, that flea flicker, in their first drive up 24-7 in the second half. But what has impressed you the most about Nick Foles? Because especially last week, he seems like a different quarterback than what he was even when he took the field in the Giant game in his first start this year, and even back in 2013.
I was at the Pro Bowl last week, and I talked to a bunch of players about, guys in this game and asked them about Nick Foles. And one of the things Harrison Smith said was he didn't seem to get phased at all. And when an opponent sees that, that's a good sign for a quarterback. When he was 27-2 a couple of years ago in Chip Kelly, that was an accident season. That's not who he is. And I remember I took a lot of heat in Philly from a lot of writers and stuff over there. I said, that's not going to happen again. You can't count on that. It's not who he is. Is he backup? He's a good quality backup. And you know what? This is what good quality backups are supposed to do, not mess it up. And he hadn't messed it up. And he's played better than not messing it up, particularly against the Vikings.
So the Eagles are lucky because Foles is just going to be the backup no matter what happens. I mean, Carson Wentz is the future there. He's a franchise guy. So a debate in Philly has been, how worried do you think fans should be? Because you've seen some guys like Robert Griffin Jr. suffer his ACL, not the same guy. Sam Bradford, even Andrew Luck now with his shoulder. I know it's not the ACL, but how concerned do you think fans should be about Wentz being the player he was before the injury when he does eventually come back?
Yeah, but he wasn't like RG3 where his game was predicated on the run. He got out of there and made plays with his legs, but he kept his head up and made throws. Might accelerate the process of him becoming more of a guy who stays in the pocket and goes through all his progressions rather than get out after 1 and 2 and make a play with his legs. But I don't think they should be. With the medical technology the way it is, I don't think they should be worried at all. I think it's going to be he'll be fine by that. But I don't know if he'll be fine on opening day. Now, that's a concern because it's a small, the window is small, but I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, the timing of the injury certainly doesn't help, the middle of December and, of course, the shortened time to get ready for training camp for week 1. But just zeroing in on this game next Sunday night, grandest stage in sports, and Bill Belichick certainly 6 rings on his fingers, 5 as a head coach, the Patriots' 8th Super Bowl appearance. On paper, this is kind of a mismatch in terms of the coaching with Doug Peterson and Belichick, but my sense is Peterson is a worthy adversary for Belichick. The aggressiveness, the way that he's been able to change the culture within that locker room in just 2 years, the way that he schemes his game plans every week based on the mismatches against the opponents. You've covered this game forever. What are your instincts in terms of how this coaching matchup is going to play out between Belichick and Doug Peterson?
The best thing about Doug Peterson is he will not coach scared. There are too many coaches in this league that coach scared. They're afraid to take chances. They're in the big stage. They're going to curl up and play it the safe way. Doug Peterson will not. He will go for it. I go back to the AFC Championship game. If Jacksonville had not played scared in the second half, they'd be here. They played scared. I don't think Doug Peterson will play scared. He's not going to get awed by the moment. He's not going to look across and see Bill Belichick over there and decide he's going to change the way he plays. They will be aggressive. He will be aggressive, and they give big kudos to him for that.
One of the reasons Doug's able to be so aggressive is because he really trusts his players. I mean, every week he says that. And the reason he has those players is because of Howie Roseman and Joe Douglas. So how surprised have you been about the job Howie's done, and how much of that is Joe? Because, Joe comes in, I know, as you know, well-respected around the league, and they've really improved, I think, in their personnel decisions, their draft decisions. What do you think of the job Howie's done coming off of that incident with Chip, and then how much do you think is Joe Douglas?
Well, I think it's a combination of the two. I think you got to give Howie a lot of credit. This is a guy who was demoted to paper clips, or whatever he was doing, and he bounced back and he's done a really good job. Look at all the pickups they've made. Some of those pickups when they made the decision to go get those guys, they were looked about. LeGarrette Blount, he was late in the process to get him. Bottom line is he's made some really good decisions. Chris Long, another guy, he's helped that pass rush. The J.J. trade, I'm still not big on because I don't think you trade assets for running backs, but it'll pay off if they win a Super Bowl. So you got to give Howie a lot of credit. You got to give Joe Douglas a lot of credit. They've done a hell of a job.
So what do you make of the philosophy where the J.J. trade is just one element? They traded third-round pick to get Ronald Darby, 20-something cornerback, high upside, had a great rookie year, really instrumental in what they've done this year. They've made some other trades where they've flipped mid-round draft picks for young but accomplished players, and they've locked them up. Tim Jernigan, you flip a third-round pick, you get Jernigan here, you sign him long-term, they bring in Alshon Jeffrey. It feels like they're positioning themselves with Wentz and with these young, established players to maybe have a changing of the guard in the NFL and maybe surpass the Patriots looking forward a couple years. Do you agree with that?
I'm going to slow that roll.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to slow that roll.
Okay.
As long as Tom Brady's taking snaps,
Sure.
They're not going to surpass them. Now, if he retires in a couple of years, then I think the door is wide open. I think anybody can win. But, the Eagles are doing it the right way. They have a quarterback who can throw the football with a coach who's not afraid to throw the football with a pass rush that gets after the quarterback. This is a passers and pass rushers league. If you have a passer and you have a pass rush, you will be competitive all season long. you will win a lot of games. So they're following the right formula.
So what do you think some of the keys are for the Eagles? I mean, just talking about this Sunday, what are some keys to beating the Patriots? A lot of people say that this is maybe the worst Patriots team in recent years that's made it to the Super Bowl in terms of their defense and, their offensive line and stuff like that. What are some keys for the Eagles to beating the Patriots?
Hit him.
Yeah.
Hit him. Mm-hmm. Bottom line. Be aggressive on defense. And I know Jim Schwartz, and I've known him a long time. He will be aggressive on defense. You can't play soft zone, cover 2 defense, cover 4 against him. You have to go after him. I go back to 3rd and 18 last week. Jacksonville against New England. They're up 10. They have a 3rd and 18. They stop them there. They're getting the ball back 9.5 minutes, up 10 in a game. What happens? They don't blitz. They play cover 4. Brady stands in the pocket, fires a rifle shot down the middle to Danny Amendola, first down, and off they go. You have to go after him. I know the Eagles have a great pass rush. Those guys can rush the passer. The outside edge guys can rush the passer. They can rush from the inside. They can move him around and do a bunch of things. But at some point, you have to bring pressure and get the ball out of his hands and hit him. I've seen it time and time again, as great as Tom Brady is. And there was a play last week in the championship game, where he started ducking early on when there was phantom pressure. If he starts seeing ghosts, he's got problems.
What really positions the Eagles to do that well is they have Fletcher Cox and Tim Jernigan up the middle, and Tom Brady and Peyton Manning talked about it all the time. A-gap pressure really disrupts opposing quarterbacks. Their defensive ends swarm to the football. So I agree with you. I think the Eagles' dominance up front on defense is
but you
got to
bring the A-gap blitzers once in a while, too.
For sure.
Just to show them and make their line off balance and get the ball out.
No doubt. So with all that said, I know we're still 6 days out from this thing. What's your initial prediction? Where are you leaning?
Very close. Very close. But in the end, Brady's going to have the ball with a chance to go win it, and he will go get the points to win it. And if they're at the end of the game, they win the game. If not, Nick Foles will get his chance. I don't think he'll go get his. The Patriots will win another Super Bowl, but it's going to be very close.
If Brady has the ball in his hands with under 2 minutes to go, down by less than 8, Eagles have no shot, in my opinion. But
less than, if it's 8, 7, maybe. Yeah. But if it's 3.
Yeah.
They're in trouble.
There you go. Pete, appreciate the time. The best in the business. Follow him on Twitter at Pete Prisco.
Pete, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. Let's talk about this actual game for a little bit, shall we? Because, I mean, if you look at the 2 weeks between games, we're over 50% of the way done that. This game is now just, 6 days away, and the Eagles are playing for the Super Bowl. So now that you've had a chance to really think about this game for 7 or 8 days at this point, where are you at with it? I know we both were kind of picking the Eagles, and there's no point in hiding the prediction this week. We're both picking the Eagles as of now. Who knows? Tomorrow we'll feel. As of now, we're both picking the Eagles. How are you feeling about that pick? You still feeling confident?
I'm feeling real confident about it, and I told you going into the NFC Championship game, and boy, was I wrong. I thought the Eagles matched up much better against either the Jaguars or the Patriots than they did the Minnesota Vikings, and they hung 38 points on Minnesota. So I think that this is a perfect matchup for the Eagles in terms of a Super Bowl opponent because, A, they have the best offensive line and best defensive line in football, and we've seen how important those two things are to a team winning a Super Bowl.
Right.
And number two, I think the matchup that, Frank Reich and Doug Peterson are going to be able to exploit all night long is Zach Ertz against Patrick Chung. And Ertz has 11 catches for 135 yards in 2 playoff games. I wouldn't put it out of reach that Zach Ertz could put up that type of production in this one game in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think he could have a very big game. And I should mention now, Radio Row's starting to heat up a little bit. A lot more people here. The tables are getting filled. No celebrities yet, unfortunately. I have my eyes peeled, but definitely starting to heat up. But to me, and I've written this a lot, and I'll write it again throughout the week, but the absolute key to this game can't be stated enough. Pressuring the quarterback.
Absolutely.
Pressuring Tom Brady. And when the Eagles signed Fletcher Cox to that massive extension, I caught some heat on Twitter because I said, honestly, I think that's too much for a defensive tackle. They're not
some heat from me.
Yeah, caught some heat from Twitter. You. Yeah. Well, Twitter matters more, you know that. But no, caught some heat. Yeah, there you go, right? But caught some heat, and I'm not ready to say I was wrong, but you can really see what a difference maker he can be when he plays at his best. And put the Tom Brady thing aside, which sounds strong to say because he's Tom Brady. Talk about putting that aside. But the Eagles' defensive line is perfectly constructed to stop Tom Brady because they're the best at getting pressure right up the middle at the quarterback. And when Brady has lost the Super Bowls, I mean, this will be his 8th. He's 5-2 in his 7 Super Bowls. He lost to the Giants both times, and the reason he lost was because of pressure.
Yep.
And the Eagles are great at getting pressure on the quarterback. No matter who they face this year, they've been able to do it. Or they completely alter the game plan to the point where Brady has to get rid of that ball in less than 2 seconds. So
what's great is that they don't have to bring extra pressure. And Tom Brady has the highest passer rating against the blitz in the NFL. Like I think it's something like 99.7 according to Pro Football Focus. The Eagles swarm from the defensive end spots, whether it's Brandon Graham and Chris Long or Vinny Curry or even Derek Barnett, who very quietly had 5 sacks this year as a rookie and contributed immediately. Player. And he's going to really have a bigger impact as the years go along. But the Eagles don't need to send extra pressure. Jim Schwartz doesn't need to send extra pressure.
And I don't think he will.
If you can get pressure up the middle with Tim Jernigan and Fletcher Cox, and you have Brandon Graham and Chris Long swarming off the edges, that leaves Malcolm Jenkins not rushing the quarterback as a safety blitzer, but covering Rob Gronkowski. That leaves Ronald Darby up against Brandon Cooks. That leaves Patrick Robinson against Danny Amendola. So you're going to have one-on-one matchups with Tom Brady having less time in the pocket than he's probably accustomed to. And I think that that's a huge advantage for the Eagles. And why I think that they have a real chance at winning this game is because of their dominance up front on offense and their dominance up front on defense.
And really, I mean, you just touched on it there, but last year when the Falcons went up 28-3 on the Patriots, seeing it, the way they did that was pressure. They had speed on defense. They pressured them. The difference, though, the Falcons are not as deep on the defensive line as the Eagles are. The Eagles have a ton of depth, as you just mentioned. Chris Long, Derek Barnett, Bo Allen, homeboy, Minnesota back. He's been playing extremely well. So they won't have to bring pressure late in the game. Bring blitzes late in the game to keep creating pressure because they're able to shuffle guys in and out throughout the game. So last year when the Falcons were up 28-3, it was all going great. They got tired in the second half.
Right.
They weren't
and they
used
took
to
their foot off the gas on offense too.
Yeah, and so I think that'll be key. But the other component to this is I wonder how much of them getting tired, which is the fact that the Patriots know how to pace themselves.
Big time.
They know what they're doing here. This will be their 8th Super Bowl. The game's a lot different. I mean, not to mention, Doug brought this up earlier in the week. I hadn't even thought about it. There's like 45 minutes to an hour of time between when the Eagles last leave the field for warm-ups to when they actually kick the ball off, between the national anthem, the pregame performance, all that type of stuff. So the Eagles, in my opinion, are extreme creatures of habit. They know how to get themselves ready Sunday to Sunday, but when you have to switch things up and things go a little differently, I think they struggle with that. So I'll be interested to see how they're able to respond to that, and that ties in not only this week, but game day as well.
No, I totally agree, and we've talked about this ever since the Eagles beat the Vikings. How they handle halftime is going to be huge.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about a typical NFL halftime is 21 minutes. It's 45 minutes to an hour of halftime. And you just look back to Super Bowl 39, the last time the Eagles were here with Andy Reid and Donovan McNabb and that crew. I mean, they talked about it after the game. The Patriots players talked about it after the game. They were prepared for halftime, New England was. They had been through it before. They knew how to come out, and maybe Spygate helped. Maybe, what they were doing, gave them a bit of a leg up. Maybe not. But they knew how to handle that 45-minute to hour layoff, and the Eagles didn't. They came out flat in the second half, and they were never really able to regain that steam. And that's where, again, Chris Long and LeGarrette Blount were here last year. So Torrey Smith won a Super Bowl ring like 4 years ago. So they've been through this before. They know how to handle it.
By the way, so last night I'm watching TV, and they're showing highlights from the Eagles' loss to the Patriots in that Super Bowl. And I was like 16 at the time, so obviously I remember it, but I wasn't watching it with a completely analytical eye. Crazy that game was 7-7 late in the third. 2, McNabb, what do you have, 2 interceptions in the fourth quarter?
Did.
1 with 7 minutes to go, and then obviously the last one of the game. T.O. killed it, but they show his press conference after the game, and he's like, everyone said I couldn't do this. If I forget what example he used, some quarterback. If a quarterback did this performance, you'd be calling him a hero. Everyone calls me selfish. I think T.O. belongs in the Hall of Fame. I think this week he should be inducted along with Brian Dawkins. He was selfish.
Yeah, on that front, my hunch tells me it's one more year.
Yeah, which is a joke because he's like a top 4 receiver of all time.
I would have put him in last year. But for whatever reason, just from whispers I hear from people in the room, I think that there's a 3-year waiting period for guys like him and guys like Randy Moss.
What about Brian Dawkins?
He's got to get in now, right? Because pretty soon you're going to have Ed Reed coming up behind you. Pretty soon in a year or two you're going to have Troy Polamalu coming up behind you. I think Brian Dawkins should get in this year, and rightfully gets in this year, but I think it's going to take a lot of campaigning from the Sal Palantonios and the Paul Domowiches of the world from Philadelphia. Ray Dinger, I believe, is in the room as well.
Yeah.
I think it's going to take some serious campaigning on their part, because voters still look at safeties as being difficult to get in the Hall of Fame, but it was Brian Dawkins who changed the way that position was played. It was him, Ed Reed, and Palomalu. Those guys are probably some of the more athletic players on the field on defense these days. It's not the way it was back in the 60s and 70s.
And Damo, if I'm not mistaken, is the guy that actually made the pitch for Dawkins.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So he'll be fighting for him. Man, what a week that would be if Dawkins gets in, they win the Super Bowl. I mean, obviously it's obviously it's the best week in Eagles franchise history at that point. Even if they lose, getting Dawkins in, I think, is something that fans are really going to enjoy. So
I agree.
All right, Radio Row is starting to really heat up here. We got some people walking around. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap this up?
I think we're going to do a lot of talking throughout the course of the week, and the storylines are going to present themselves. I'm kind of excited for the Media Night reaction pod tomorrow, because I think that's going to be a lot of fun to be in that circus again tonight.
So as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, we're getting close to 500 reviews. We would love if you were to leave a review. We need 21 before Sunday. I think we're going to get there. I feel confident, but we need your help. So if you're not subscribing, please do so. You can find us on all your podcast apps at The No Huddle Show. If you're listening on YouTube, leave a thumbs up, and we always read all those comments, so we appreciate them. And we're going to have an episode for you every day. So thanks, everyone, for listening. Matt, I'll talk to you and everyone else later on.
Talk to you tomorrow.